What's up, everybody? My name is Jake, also known as Tigers Music. Okay, so I want to touch base on just some basic mixing here. And mixing it's pretty, it can be anywhere from easy to complicated depending on what you're working on, how big your project file is, and just your level of expertise and knowledge when it comes to mixing. A good rule of thumb for mixing is you always want to mix your stuff really quiet, because you can always bring your volume back up when it comes to mastering. If you mix quiet, you're going to avoid clipping, you're going to avoid redlining over your master track, and you're going to avoid a lot of problems just by mixing quiet. So what I have here is a simple kick drum loop, simple hi-hat loop, snare loop, some bass. It's a bass loop here I found in a sample pack, and a chord loop. And we're going to mix this all together. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by keeping the kick drum as the highest level in our song here, because in dance music generally the kick drum is what drives the song, so we want to have the kick drum be just ever so slightly the loudest thing in this track. And what a lot of people like to do is they like to just vary based off the level they're seeing in this number right here. Now, using the numbers is not a good way to mix, because every sample is going to be a different volume. If I leave my kick drum here at -14 and my hi-hats here at 0, that does not mean my hi-hats are going to be louder than my kick. My kick can still be much louder than these hi-hats, as you can even see here, because of the fact is that the original sample isn't playing at exactly 0 decibels. The sample is probably playing at around, I'm going to imagine, probably around -15 to 20-ish decibels. So what we're going to do is we're going to be mixing based off the actual level meters right here. So we're going to play the whole track back, and as a good rule of thumb, we're going to start off with the kick being generally the loudest thing. I'll start right about here. We're going to lower everything down. We're just going to bring everything back up just to level it out and make it for a good mix. So that sounded pretty good to me. And what I'm doing here is I don't want my kick to be overpowering everything, so I'm actually turning my kick down a little bit to kind of even out with this snare here, because as you can see, the snare is just ever so slightly quieter than the kick, which is good. We want the snare to actually punch through the song still. We don't want it to be too quiet or too overpowered by the kick drum. The cymbals here, as in this hi-hat, these are already being taken up by the higher frequencies, so we don't really need anything that's so loud. When you bring that back into master mode, you'll be able to hear it just fine, so you don't need to make it real loud at all. In fact, keeping it generally about half or to a quarter less of what your snare drum or kick drum is at is a good rule of thumb there. Your bass lines, you can make your bass line just slightly less than your snare, and you'll almost be pretty much good to go right there. Same with your chords, make your chords just a little bit less than your bass line, and you'll be good to go. Basically, as long as your stuff isn't overpowering the kick or isn't overpowering anything else too much, you're on the right track for a good mix. And as you can see, I'm no longer clipping as well. I still have a little bit of headroom here. It looks about 4 to 5 decibels of headroom, which is good. So one thing I get all the time is, how do you make your drums so punchy? How do you make them punch to the mix? How do you make them sound so crisp and easily to hear? A good thing to do for your kick is you normally would boost just a slight boost around the 60 to 80 hertz area and do a cut generally somewhere between 20 and 40 hertz. It gives it a nice it adds like a nice kick or a nice punch to your kick there, and really tightens it up. You don't want to do a whole lot of boosting. Also, keep in mind, when you do boost your EQs, that it is going to raise the volume of your overall track. So if you do some boosting, it's going to make that track louder. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're doing your overall mix. If you're working with vocals, a good starting point is you never want to keep the sub in vocals. You're never going to use the sub bass in the vocals, even if there is like some bass and low end there. You can just cut all that straight to about, starting off generally around 200 hertz. I think after that, it's all up to taste of what do you think, what do you like. Now, generally in vocals, somewhere around the 3 to 4 to 5K hertz range, there's a frequency that just the nature of vocals tend to give off, where it just sounds really bad. An easy tip to get rid of that too is just turn up a high Q and just boost the hell out of that gain there. You can actually search for what sounds like really bad there.
We could dance forever. We could dance forever. We could dance forever. We could dance forever.
So right here I'm hearing I have a sharp tone. I'm going to get rid of that there. I'm just doing a slight. So I'm just gonna do a slight gain reduction there. Maybe tighten up the Q a little bit.
We could dance forever.
That already sounds a lot better. And you know, for vocals, make it sound a little better and just being so dry, I'm gonna add a little bit of reverb and delay as well.
We could dance forever.
That sounds a lot better. Your chords are generally pretty easy. All you really want to do is just put some light compression on there. You know, make sure everything's kind of all the same volume dynamic wise. You know, you want your chords to be generally the same, usually hitting at the same volume all the time. And also, to make your drums punch through a little better, is you want to do a slight side chain on your kick. And a nice little tip too, some people actually don't do. This is really up to you and up what your taste feels like, is to actually side chain your snare as well to your chords. Now I throw in this little OTT here because I think personally makes my chords stand out a little better and sound like a little crisp. Here's without the OTT, and with the OTT. Personally, I just love that sound. Now for the EQ, I got rid of all the sub bass. I got rid of part of the mid bass here. You know, there's a general, you know, the nature of chords when you're using a bass line in chords that they have a natural mid bass. So I'm going to keep that there only because I'm not really using a mid bass in this song. I'm just using a sub in the chords and my leads and drums there. So I'm going to leave the mids in this EQ here, just for this a little bit. Not so much I'm punching into the sub bass region here, everything below 100 hertz. Now to let my leads punch through a little more too, I did a reduction in the EQ over in this area here, which is generally around the starting pretty much the 1K and ending around the 8K hertz area. I did a little bit of boosting as well here. And keeping in mind, you know, every time you do boost, it's going to make your stuff a little louder in some areas, so you might not always want to do that. You want to take time to listen to what you're doing and not just go off the numbers that's on that's on your EQs there. So as you're EQing, make sure you're listening as well. I got rid of these mid to highs here, because as you can hear, there's like a really high pitch sound there. It sounds really bad, so I don't need any of that there. Also, if I cut that, it makes my leads come out just a little, breathe through a little better. Now moving on to leads, I actually have a lot of layers going on here, different sounds. A whole bunch of craziness going on there. Every single one of these have different effects going on. That took a long time to figure out. But that's a whole different story. For an EQ on my leads, super simple. I just cut the high, or I cut the mid, part of the mids and all the bass. If I want to, I can also do a little bit of boost right in this area, kind of where I cut the chords at. Maybe cue it up a little bit. And then I'll tighten up the mix there, kind of keeping everything in its own separate spectrum. Sub bass. Your sub bass is always really easy to EQ. Just cut all the way down to 100 hertz. There's nothing else to it. Anything above 100 hertz, you're not going to need it. It's sub bass. Sub bass is not heard, sub bass is felt. And generally, you only really feel sub bass between 30 to 40 to 100 hertz. Snares. So snares is going to vary depending on what sample you're using. Same with the kicks, but kicks we can generally leave alone. So this snare in particular, I did a little boosting here. As you can see, this snare here has a tonal region in the 400 hertz area, exactly around 441. Generally speaking, snares have a good tone region between 200 to 400 or 500 hertz, depending where, and you can actually make a really punchy sound by boosting in that area somewhere. So I'm going to boost for about there. I'm going to get rid of these lower mids. You don't need any sub bass and snares either. You can get a lot of punch out just by boosting a little bit where that tone is at. I did some boosting here to make it kind of stand out a little more, and I boosted the highs just to get a more crisp sound out of that snare because the snare sample was kind of weak when I first used it. And I layered it up with a second snare hit, and it's similar sound, but this one actually cut the upper mids lower highs here just to let this one breathe through a little more, and together those both sound like this. You see they're very crisp, very punchy snares. They sound really good. So the next thing I want to talk about is compression. A lot of people don't really understand what compression does. They just think, okay, yeah, it just makes things louder. That is a very big misconception there. What compression generally does, it takes the volume, or it takes the dynamics of a sample and it evens them out to a certain level that is given by the user. So for example, I have this guitar sample here. As we can see, the dynamics of this sample kind of vary. You know, they're going from a little louder to quieter, loud to quiet, loud to quiet, loud to quiet. And what compression really does, it levels out all those sounds to the same general decibels or the same level of volume. And the way this works is the ratio is going to determine just how much is going to be compressed. Threshold is me deciding at what volume you're going to be compressing to. So if I go all the way up on a ratio, it's going to compress everything to the same exact level based off whatever level I give it on the threshold. So if I tell it I want to be fully compressed at -10 decibels, and the attack is going to be telling me how long it takes for its compression to be taking effect. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lower the attack down here. Let me lower the release just a little tiny bit as well. Release is going to be how long it's going to be sustaining that level of compression, and flatten or otherwise balance this out. You can see everything has been flattened out to generally the same exact level, all set to -10 decibels. So if I set this volume here to 0, this will be playing at -10 decibels, all at the same volume. You can see here reflected as well on my level meter over here. Tell me it's all playing back at -10 decibels. That is a quick overview of what compression is and what compression does. Too much compression can be bad for a song because a lot of people don't like to overuse compression because you're actually getting rid of the natural dynamics of the sound. For EDM music and electronic dance music, sometimes it's not such a bad idea. You know, a lot of people, we like to overcompress the living shit out of a lot of stuff. Then that can be good at times, but sometimes you don't want that as well. Things you would generally want compression on is vocals. You want the vocals to stay consistent in volume the whole way through a song. Things such as this guitar track here, maybe some synth samples. If there's too much LFO going on, you kind of want things to be leveled out. Chords generally would have a compression going on there, even like sidechain compression. And that is an overview of compression and what compression does. I hope that helps out.